ahead and get started. So if you'll all stand with me and join me with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sue, will you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Herzog? Oh, how do I do this? Oh. Mr. Herzog? Okay.
Here.
Can hear you.
Just doing it again. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Rokuchi? Here. Mr. Moss? Here. Mr. Nader?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. EJ?
Good morning. EJ Ivaldi with Planning Services Division. I've lost my voice a little bit this morning, so bear with me. Before I get started, one thing I want to do is recognize some of the staff that works up here in our Tahoe office. These are people that are on the front line and behind the scenes that you typically don't do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call some names, and hopefully staff will oblige and stand up for me and stay standing until I get everybody announced. So with that, Cindy Cole, she's been with the county for quite some time. She's one of our CEDRA technicians up here at our Tahoe office, and she worked for years down in Auburn. Rachel Lopez, she's our also a CEDRA technician, also spent some time down in Auburn and now is up in the Tahoe office. Fred Stam, a little newer, engineer with our ESD department. Hi there. Deborah DeVenzio, I think you're probably our newest county employee, and she's our code enforcement officer up here in Tahoe. And then lastly, Janie Balvin, who is our assistant planner. Hi there. So anyway, just want to put some names to the face and introduce these folks, so thank you. Yeah. I'll let you sit down now. And then one more introduction, but I'm going to let Elise Nelson, our county counsel, make that introduction. And so I'll turn it over to you real quick.
Hi, you might notice there's two attorneys over here today. I'd like to introduce Clayton Cook of the county counsel's office. And you'll be seeing more of Clayton this summer while I'm out on maternity leave. So he's here to get to know everybody today and kind of get the hang of the Planning Commission and to get to know everyone. So welcome, Clayton.
All right, thank you.
To keep us out of trouble.
They can try.
We never get in trouble.
So Tuesday, you'll be happy to know that the board approved the appointment for the District 5 Planning Commissioner. His name is Anders Hauge. Some folks up in Tahoe might know him. He's has his own planning firm, and his wealth of experience in the planning world, about 45 years worth, working on stuff in Tahoe with TRPA, on the other side of the mountains, and in 3 different states. So we're hoping that he'll be here at the next meeting that we have on May 24th up here in Tahoe. As for meetings coming up, the May 10th meeting is going to be canceled. And so the meeting I was just talking about, May 24th, we will be right back here at the Event Center in Tahoe. We have the base-to-base gondola project. That's the gondola that runs from Squaw Valley to Alpine. The draft EIR and EIS, the Environmental Impact Report, there will be a hearing on that document just to accept comments. There's a 45-day public review period that the public should know about. The draft EIR, EIS will be released on Friday, this April 27th, and the 45 days will run until June 11th. So anybody interested can attend the May 24th meeting up here. They can submit comments orally or in writing as well. That document will also be posted on our county website too. So then after that, we'll be back down in Auburn on June 14th. I don't have an agenda for that yet, but I keep promising things are going to pick up, and they will, believe me.
It could be a flood.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have unless there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions for EJ? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. And we were going to do an oath of that new person that EJ referenced, but they're not here today. So we'll do that on the meeting on the 24th of next month. So now we're going to have the public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone who would like to comment on anything that's not on our agenda. I would preface it by saying that you're limited to 3 minutes. There is a timer on the podium, and it will alert you when you'll have green until you have a minute left, and then a yellow will come on, and then you have a minute, obviously, to wrap up. And then when it turns red, you're done. So I appreciate you respecting that. And that will be applied to all the items that were also on our agenda today. So is there any public comment on anything that's not on our agenda today? Okay, seeing none, we will move to our consent agenda. And EJ, do you want to address one of those?
Right, so I'd like to pull off consent, request that the chair pull off consent the action agenda, which is item A. And if you...
I'm going to ask that item B be pulled for discussion and have a presentation on it. So that effectively sort of gets rid of our consent agenda. Do we need to have any kind of a motion that references those?
Yeah, so let's, we'll take the first item first, which is consent item A. And the changes that were made to the action agenda are on the third page, and just the time that the item ran on item 2 from 10:26 to 11:17, and when the meeting adjourned, which was 11:18. So just those two minor changes, so the commission can go ahead and
We can go ahead and approve that. Are you saying?
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
I have a first with Commissioner Johnson, and a second, was that Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call with Mr. Herzog,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, in pulling the second item, do we have to take any action on that at all, or just that it's being pulled?
Well, since you pulled the item, we'll have staff give a just short presentation, and
Right.
after the presentation, any deliberation, we can take it under consideration.
Okay. All right.
Does that come now or at last?
Yeah, we're going to have it now. That's typically how you would take it. And so, Callie, you're up.
Perfect, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. The item before you this morning is an extension of time for the Nellie Jo Ranch tentative subdivision map and conditional use permit. The project is located on a north side of Spring Garden Road and east of the Eagle Crest subdivision in the Forest Hill area, shown here. Here we have the tentative map. The project site is zoned residential forest with a combining minimum building site of 20 acres and a combining planned development of 0.44 dwelling units per acre. The project would have 80 single-family residential lots with an average lot size of 3.6 acres and 7 open space lots totaling 80 acres. The project would have utility and road improvements and would also have a public equestrian trail and staging area. The Nellie Jo Ranch subdivision and EIR were approved and certified by the Planning Commission on May 25th, 2006. Automatic extensions granted by the state brought the expiration date of the map to June 5th, 2016. On June 23rd, 2016, the Planning Commission approved a 2-year extension of time, and this established a new expiration date of June 5th, 2018. The applicant is requesting a 2-year extension of time, which would establish a new expiration date of June 5th, 2020. The project would be eligible for 1 additional 2-year extension of time. The economic recession prevented the project from completing the improvements and recording the final map. Prior to the recession, 2 iterations of improvement plans had been submitted to the county, and then after the recession hit, the engineering firm that had been hired by the applicant went out of business. In 2014, the project lead passed away, and his family has since been moving forward on getting the project sold to a local developer. The extension would allow an additional 2 years for the developer to complete the required improvements and record the final map. The project site is located in a very high state responsibility area, and fire service is provided by CAL FIRE, the Forest Hill Fire Protection District in the U.S. Forest Service. The EIR prepared for the Nellie Jo Ranch subdivision determined that there would be potential impacts from wildlife hazards, and mitigation measures were applied to the project to reduce these impacts to a less than significant level. I have the mitigation measures up here, and these mitigation measures require vegetation modification, submitting a fire safety plan, requiring defensible space, and also requiring fuel breaks around residential structures. Conditions were also applied to the project related to fire safety. These include will-serve letter requirements, requiring a pressurized water system, creating a forest fuel reduction plan, and compliance with fire regulations and notifying future homeowners of these regulations. Permit-seeking extensions of time require that permit conditions be updated to reflect current standards. Since the project was initially approved, the California Building Code and the Forest Hill Divide Community Plan have been updated. Applicable changes include sprinkler requirements, changes to road weight standards to support heavier fire trucks, compliance with wildland urban interface building standards, and creating 100 feet of defensible space around structures. Lastly, the project is also installing a fire hydrant for fire suppression. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a 2-year extension of time for the Nellie Jo Ranch tentative subdivision map and conditional use permit in reliance on the previously certified environmental impact report and based on the on the environmental impact report and modified conditions of approval based on the findings and conditions contained in the staff report. I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. That was helpful. Is the applicant here, and would they like to add anything to Kelly's comments?
Only if you have any questions, I can take them.
Okay. All right.
I'm Kathleen Grant.
All right. Thank you.
And Rick Velgus, and we're all family members. It was a whole family project
All right.
to do.
Appreciate you folks coming up today for this, and we'll have a discussion on it, and if we have some questions, we'll ask you. You did provide, which was rather helpful, some history that unfortunately the rest of the commission didn't get. Callie did sort of summarize it, but it was helpful to kind of understand what you've gone through up to this point. So we'll have a discussion about it. So you can go ahead and sit down if you like. Just to let the rest of the commission know, I had been contacted with some concerns about this. It's obviously for Forest Hill, this is a very significant project when you're talking about 400 acres and 80 residences. And they were concerned about whether, this is a 12-year-old approved project, and whether the standards, particularly as it relates to fire hazard, and that's why I asked Kelly to really address that, how different they are today, and especially in light of what's happened in Ventura and Santa Rosa. We obviously need to be very attentive to these kinds of issues. And again, Kelly, it was very helpful to know that because even though the project was approved 12 years ago, and there were obviously some addressing this issue, that even today, they would still have to meet the current standards, and that there wouldn't have to be any shortfall in how the hazard is addressed today versus it was 12 years ago. So I think that addresses the issue that had been raised to me on this. So I don't know if there are any other concerns that anybody else has at this point about it. Certainly if you have any questions.
I guess there was nobody from the public that wanted to comment?
No.
Okay.
No, they contacted me and asked me, but they weren't going to make it. Right.
For today.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you. You're supposed to be guiding me on this, okay?
See, I do. I just, maybe Kelly could, just for information purposes, we're talking about these mine tunnels that have to be, something has to happen to them. Sounds like this is a new requirement that has come up.
No, the Environmental Health Services Division did provide a memo that had a reiteration of the mitigation measure that was applied to the project for those mine sites. It's not a new mitigation measure, but because it is a potential safety concern, environmental health wanted to be particularly careful to have that on notice for the applicant, that that's a very important piece of the project that needs to be remedied prior to actually recording the final map.
Okay, thank you.
Callie, just one last question on the fire hazard issues. If a project were coming in today in the Forest Hill area, would there be anything addressed differently as far as the fire hazard? Again, I know there's obligations to meet the current standards, but would we look at it any differently than we looked at it 12 years ago?
No, the main difference is the state responsibility areas. Those were established, I believe, in 2007, and what that does is it requires any properties that are within a high or very high state responsibility area to be completely compliant with Chapter 7A of the California Building Code, and that chapter is all of the wildland-urban interface building standards. So that includes building materials, fuel reduction, and defensible space requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Callie or the applicant? If you'd like to get up and make an additional comment to that, you certainly can.
I mean, obviously, you're concerned about the fire.
Right.
We live in Forest Hill.
Right.
We completely understand that, and we're very tuned in to making sure that's not an issue. And just as a point of reference, in 2012, I think, there was a fire on the North Fork, and Nellie Joe had been masticated and cleared out. And the Forest Service used that as a staging point and actually were able to stop the fire coming up that hill at that point. So we're very aware of that, and we will definitely take every effort to make sure it's mitigated.
As I understand, you're in the process of selling this to a developer who is going to move the project forward. And
Yes.
He doesn't have a time necessarily of when he wants to move it forward, but he's saying that he wants to do it soon.
Correct.
And you're hoping that that closes maybe in June, I think you were saying, says it's fairly soon.
Correct.
So, and they seem to be obviously as committed to the project as you folks were and originally, and the person who was project lead on this was, I would assume.
Yeah, and they want to build a house there and actually live there. So
Oh, okay.
his intentions are right along with what we were trying to do and seeing it through. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, again, any questions or comments? Then I would ask that we take whatever action.
I'd make a motion that,
I'd suggest that we open up for public comment
Oh,
at
yeah,
this time.
sorry. You're correct, thank you.
what's that?
Public comment, so I didn't necessarily get around to that, so, sorry. Anyone from the public want to comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to that.
Okay, I make a motion that we, as a planning commission, approve a 2-year extension of time for the Nellie Joe Ranch tentative subdivision map and conditional use permit in reliance on the previously certified environmental impact report and modified conditions of approval based on the findings contained in the staff report.
Okay,
I-
okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to do a roll call.
Yes, I have a first by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner Herzog. So if I could get a vote from Mr. Herzog.
Actually, I didn't second that.
I'm
I
sorry.
think Jeff beat him to it.
I tried to. He beat me to it. That's okay. That's okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
So Mr. Moss was the second. So Mr. Herzog,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Mr. Moss? Yes. Mr. Nader?
Yes.
I don't think my mic is working.
All right, then we will move to our next item. Thank you.
Oh,
Yes. Oh, yeah, an appeal. Thank you. If somebody wants to appeal this, they have 10 days, and it's $581. Thank you for
boy,
reminding
you're
me.
getting there.
It's not in front of me, but I remembered it. Okay, let's see, our next item, where's my agenda? Our 10:05, we certainly have passed that, so we can move on to Alvarez Bear Creek. So, Stacy.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Nader and fellow planning commissioners. I am going to present to you the Alvarez Bear Creek Association Subdivision Map Modification. And to quickly get you oriented as to where the project is located, it is located in Alpine Meadows, and it is in between the town of Truckee and Tahoe City, and accessed off of Highway 89. Specifically, the site is located in the Bear Creek Association subdivision, which consists of single-family residential lots, as well as lots that are constructed currently with single-family residences. And it is also Lot 49, located at 2001 Big John Road in Alpine Meadows. In 1963, the Bear Creek Association subdivision recorded its map. And with the recordation of that map, they established a 30-foot front recorded setback. Within that 30-foot front recorded setback, there is the first 10 feet, which is allocated to road widening, and then beyond that first 10 feet is a 20-foot building setback. And that is what is being requested to encroach into today. So the existing conditions of the site, as I mentioned, it is in Alpine Meadows, and it is located within the general plan designation of residential with a zoning district of single-family residential, 4 dwelling units per acre. The site consists of an 1,881 square foot existing single-family residence on the 20,307 square foot parcel. As I mentioned, it's on a corner parcel, while hard to see through all of the fir and pine trees, but Bear Creek Drive is over here, and Big John Road is over here. There's also large boulders, which I will show in other pictures later in the presentation. And then something also important to note is this area here is where the current roof projection is located into that 30-foot setback for approximately 3.5 feet. So this is a plan view of the existing conditions. And as you can see where I noted that existing encroachment, here's the existing single-family residence. And then here is Big John Road and Bear Creek Drive. So when the setbacks are applied to the parcel, the triangular parcel, you see there's very limited areas of which an addition can be made to the residence. In this particular case, the applicants are hoping to build a garage, for a more organized enclosed parking area. And then with that garage, they're also proposing a master suite, so additional living space to the existing single-family residence. And then to tie it in with the garage and master suite, which does comply with the setbacks, they needed to encroach into the 5-foot setback for a new covered and enclosed entryway. So a mudroom is basically what is encroaching onto Big John Road's 30-foot setback. So this is a 5-foot encroachment request for approximately 73 square feet. And as I mentioned, the garage and living space that's proposed has been designed to completely fit within this setback. It's just, unfortunately, I know the applicant and architect is here who could further explain, but just with the lines of the existing residence, it was really hard to tie in the proposed addition, which complies to get the size of the mudroom and enclosing it as they need for a protected entryway. So with the triangular parcel and the applied setbacks and the existing trees and boulders, there are some hardships which lend itself to allowing, or at least staff recommending, approval of this encroachment into that setback. It is important to note that the 10-foot setback for road widening will not be impacted by this encroachment should it get approved. So this is the view off of Bear Creek Drive where the proposed addition and garage is located, or proposed, excuse me. And then I will go to the next slide, which shows where the proposed 73 square foot addition, encroachment into the setback is proposed for the mudroom. And so with that, staff is recommending that the commission find that the map modification be categorically exempt from CEQA per 2 CEQA sections of, CEQA section 15305 of the CEQA guidelines, as well as section 18.36.070 which is Class 5 of our Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, and also approve the subdivision map modification to the Bear Creek Association subdivision for Lot 39 to allow for a 25-foot front setback where a 30-foot map setback is required along Big John Road for the construction of a residential addition, as I described in my staff presentation, and all supported by the findings and recommended conditions contained in the staff report. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Would the applicant or applicant representative like to add anything to Stacy's comments?
Hi there, I'm Rob Olson, local architect, but more importantly, I live just a couple houses down the street from it, so I'm a neighbor as well. And I've been here for over 10 years working on kind of oddball projects like this, trying to work with the charm of the homes that have been built over many decades. And I think Stacy did a great job explaining what's going on there, and I kind of just leave it at that unless you have some more specific questions. So.
Any questions?
I just have one question of Mr. Olson. It has nothing to do with the design of the project.
Sure.
But give me a little historical background on who is Hendrik Bull, the original architect, since we have something here that says the home is not listed on the historic registry. So he must be important, but I don't know a thing about him.
Yeah,
Do you know something about him? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's of Norwegian descent. He came here and did a lot of ski homes and kind of ski culture, and not as famous as Frank Lloyd Wright and all those other people, but amongst us nerd architects, we do respect each other, and we wanted to kind of pay homage, and he took great advantage of kind of the south kind of view and the sunlight coming in, and it was just totally inappropriate to put the garage and the other side where there's some boulders too, and it just didn't really connect to the house as well. And as Stacy noted, we really tried to tuck everything into this little triangle, if you will, on the John Scott Trail side, and just trying to get around and connecting into it. Just, we unfortunately had to ask for a couple square feet.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Thank
yeah.
you for that information.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, all right, thank you. We'll call you
Thank
back
you.
if we have
Thank you.
anything else. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to comment on this? All right, I'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for discussion or action.
I'd like to ask just staff a general question, and EJ maybe might want to tackle it or something, but this is considered, I mean, it's kind of minor, we're not taking in the whole setback. Like in the city of Rose where I live, if the planning director can, if it's on a 5-foot setback, can go up to 1.5 foot encroachment without going to a planning commission and stuff. Now, this county doesn't have that kind of leeway, or is this because it's on a private road, or what's the issue there?
Yeah, so good question. So we do have administrative approvals to give some lenience to setbacks. In this particular case, it's actually a mapped setback on a recorded
it's a
subdivision
map.
map.
Okay.
So that's the process we have to go through to amend that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I guess I have a question from engineering, just to get some assurance that, previously we've had quite a bit of discussion up here where garages are being built and the problem that it creates sometimes with snow removal. And so, I'm not seeing anything in the report that specifically addresses that, but would like to be assured that that it was addressed.
I could answer that. Normally we would be concerned with issues like that on public roads. This is both Big John and Bear Creek Road here are private roads. We do not maintain those. The county does not maintain those for snow storage.
Okay, so this wouldn't be an issue then on a private road?
Not for the county.
Okay.
Somebody else it might be.
Okay, any other questions or action that we want to take? Okay.
You have to wake up Mr. Herzog down.
Yeah, somebody step forward.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we find the map modification to be categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to the provisions of Section 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA guidelines, and Section 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5 minor alterations in land use limitations, supported by the findings contained within the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
And first by Commissioner Moss, a second by Commissioner Herzog, so a vote from Commissioner Herzog.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the subdivision map modification in the Bear Creek Association subdivision Lot 39 to allow for a 25-foot front setback where there is a required 30-foot map setback on Big John Road in order to construct a residential addition including a two-car garage, mudroom, and master suite, supported by the findings and recommendations of approval contained within the staff report.
do we have a second?
I'll second that as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Okay, that motion was Mr. Moss, second by Mr. Herzog, so a vote from Mr. Herzog?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes. Okay, thank you everybody on this one. So we'll move to our 10:15 item, Tight Ice Lake Subdivision number 2. Alan? Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. Welcome to Tahoe.
Thank you.
And I
Good to
do
be
want
here.
to invite, I know Planning Services, and you do have staff, as EJ mentioned, but I do want to invite the Planning Commission to our Tahoe City office at any time. You know, we'd like to introduce you to other staff, but a lot of our staff see our process, but not, you know, some of the other processes the Planning Commission does, so it's very important. We're trying to let them know how important their job is up front loading this process. So, but again, I'd like to invite the Planning Commission anytime to come to our office.
Great, thank you.
So this is the Tite Ice Lake subdivision. I do have Janet Tite is here today. She came from San Rafael to answer any questions the commission may have on this particular project. It's similar to what Stacy presented. It is a change on the map. It was approved back in 1960. It is in Serene Lakes. This is Serene Lake right here. The property in question is right at this location. This is Donner Street, and then you have Beacon is right here. It's a corner lot. It is surrounded by residential single-family dwellings. It's zoned RS, which is our residential single-family. What occurred many years ago when the applicant approached us, what they would like to do is provide an entryway into this particular residence. There's a small one right here that goes right by the garage. So doing some research, and the applicant did inform us previously this particular garage didn't have any building permits. So unfortunately, because of the angle, and I'll show on the site plan, there wasn't really any place that this particular garage could be rebuilt. So what occurred at that time is that staff reviewing it, working with the applicant, we looked at alternative designs to try to figure something out there. There were some other residences nearby too that did have map modifications, so we didn't look at this as an extreme special circumstance just for them, but this was something that was already established in this area. So this is kind of unique. What we're going to be asking the commission to do is actually there's a variance associated with this particular map modification. There's actually a 30-foot setback also. That's because it's a corner lot, there's a 30-foot setback at this location that comes here. And there's a subdivision 20-foot setback that comes off the property line here as well as here. So working with the applicants, they had to meet 2 parking spaces, so they are proposing as part of the map modification is a carport at this location. It will be 10 feet from property line. They will remove the 2-car garage and propose about a 1.5, just 1-car garage, but a little bit bigger than a 1-car. And then there will be a staircase that's enclosed that will come up at this location. And as you know, when staff reviewed it, we have concerns, you know, the snow removal, because this is county maintained. no living space within the front setback. So again, working with them is what we did is the garage is within the map setback. This is the existing conditions. This is the proposal. So you see the red here is the garage. This line happens to be the 20-foot map setback. So only the garage, a portion of the enclosed staircase, and the carport, which is not part of this plan, but is right here, will be in the map setback. Then the proposed living space above the garage is outside the 20-foot setback. Unfortunately, it's within the 30-foot setback of the zoning ordinance. So we are going to be asking the Planning Commission to take action to allow the second story to be within the zoning setback. So with that, pretty short and sweet, I do have the applicant here if there's any questions for her, and then I can answer any questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
You bet.
Would the applicant like to add anything to Alan's comments? Why don't you come up and introduce yourself, and then we'll...
All right. I'm Janet Tite. I'm one of the owners of our property. My husband, David Tite, is not here. Okay. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No questions?
I guess not at the moment, anyway. So
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll open it up to public comment. Would anyone like to step forward and talk about this project? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for whatever action or discussion you'd like. I'd take it. Is there any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I think it's your turn.
I think I do have a question.
Oh, you do?
And just maybe some help and education for me. This is a 30-foot setback in some cases and a 20-foot setback. And so I think I would like some help in understanding maybe originally why it was established as a 30-foot setback.
Good questions. I'll go back to the plan here. In 1960, when this subdivision was created, there was the 20-foot map setback. So what that is, it's a hard line saying no structures can be proposed within that 20-foot setback. We do have a zoning that we did when our board of supervisors that approves, and that zoning setback is 30 feet. So it's somewhat conflicting. So we got a hard and fast line of the 20 feet for the map, and then I got the 30 feet. And as EJ indicated, if there was some kind of slope exception we can look at, if it was just the zoning setback, we would be able to administratively approve it. But this one is it's very unique because of the two different setbacks. So this particular neighborhood, not all of them have the 20-foot setback. So the zoning will say everything is 30 feet. So then it's up to staff when we review these things, if there is a map setback, which we discovered in 1960 there was. We have, unfortunately for the applicant, they have to amend that. And that's what we're asking for today.
Did that answer your question? Okay. All right. Any other questions or some action? Alan, could you move it back to the recommendation, please? Thank you.
I can go ahead and motion. I'll make a motion that we find the project categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to provisions of Section 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act, guidelines in Sections 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5 minor alterations and land use limitations supported by the findings contained within the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
First by Mr. Herzog and second by, is that Mr. Roker?
Correct.
So a vote for Mr. Herzog,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Roker,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
I'd also like to make a motion that we approve the subdivision map modification on the Ice Lake subdivision number 2, lot 11, to allow for a 10-foot setback, front setback, where there is a required 20-foot mapped setback on Donner Drive. In order to replace a non-permitted 2-car garage, no building permits exist for that, with a new 1-car garage, covered staircase, entryway, and covered carport, supported by the findings and recommended conditions of approval contained within the staff report.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Okay, we'll try that again. First by Mr. Herzog and a second by Mr. Rokucci. So a vote from Mr. Herzog,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and I
Then
didn't
we got
say it on the last one.
one more action, Chairman.
Oh, is there one more?
Yeah, and that should be number 3, too.
Oh, the variance, yeah, sorry. You want to try it again, Nathan?
I'd like to motion that we approve the variance to allow for a 10-foot front setback where there's a required 30-foot zoning setback on Donner Drive in order to replace a non-permitted two-car garage, no building permits, with a new one-car garage, covered staircase entryway, covered carport, and to allow a second-story living area 20-foot from property line, supported by the findings and recommended conditions of approval contained within the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
That was a first with Mr. Herzog and a second with Mr. Rokucci. So a vote from Mr. Herzog,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're done. And I didn't mention on the last one, but I assume that these both apply to appeals that people can make if they would like. They have 10 days, and it will cost you $581. Okay, then we will move to our last item, the Tahoe Vista Verizon Wireless Tower. Steve, it's your turn.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Steve Bielna, Planning Services Division out of the Tahoe City office here. And the item I'm presenting before you today is the Verizon Wireless. It's on behalf of Verizon Wireless. It's for a conditional use permit in the Tahoe Vista area. Specifically, it's for a monopine facility. Just to help orient where this project is located, just for reference, State Route 267 extends from down at Lake Tahoe here, and in this direction going north would be towards Truckee. State Route 28 to the left would be Tahoe City, and to the right would be State Line, Nevada. There's a couple of residential streets here, just for reference, Brassey Avenue and Beach Street, and obviously the subject parcel is outlined in red before you here. The property itself is just under 10 acres in size, and actually comprises one of the lots that's a portion of the old Brockway golf course. As technology has changed over the years, both residents and first responders have become more and more reliant on the cellular communications for daily activities as well as for in the event of emergencies. In order to keep up with the demand on these facilities and to address some coverage gaps, the applicants have proposed a new monopine in the Kings Beach area. As you can see on this slide here, the subject parcel, again outlined in red, actually contains two zone districts. The majority of the parcel is actually located in the residential zone district, with a very small portion up here in the northwest that's zoned recreation. When the applicant originally submitted this application, their proposal would have located the cellular facility down here, closer to the residents along Brassey Avenue. In discussions with the applicant and county staff, they chose to relocate that facility to the recreational zone district. It's important to note that this same project, same facility, should it be located in the residential zone district, would have required a minor use permit. It wouldn't have been before your planning commission, would have been considered by the zoning administrator. Because it's located in the recreational zone district, it does require a conditional use permit, which is the purview of your planning commission. This slide helps to illustrate a little bit better the surroundings of the property. As you can see, the other extent of the golf course area. Right here is the Safeway, and there's residential areas here and a larger residential area right in through there. Access to the subject property is off of Beach Street which comes in through here, goes through the residential areas, and where my pointer is bouncing all around right there are the last two residences on Beach Street. At the end of Beach Street, the pavement ends, it extends onto an unimproved portion where it provides access to the maintenance building facility for the old Brockway Golf Course. The application, and you'll see it on the next site plan, next slide for the site plan, right where that area is right there is where the proposed monopine will be located. So here's the site plan, and it shows the proposal, which is a 30-foot by 30-foot lease area of the old Brockway Golf Course. The perimeter of this will be secured with a 10-foot tall fence, and inside the confines of that 30 by 30 area will be a monopine as well as a diesel generator. It's important to note that the facility itself will be powered by electricity. The diesel generator is simply for instances where there's power outages, which in this area generally would occur during inclement weather, heavy snow events, things of that nature. So looking at the proposed facility here, it is a monopine design. The pole itself is 75 feet tall. The overall height of the facility will be 80 foot tall with the foliage. And you can see where the antennas will be located right in through here. The fenced area that I referenced earlier is located right here. The design of that will be 2 foot tall concrete blocks along the base with 8 foot tall boards surrounding that. This area of the county does require design review for a facility similar to this, and so the design review, in addition to staff's review and comments and coordination with the applicant, design review will take a look at further refining the design elements of the proposed structure. Some of those things might include what type of stain would be required for the fencing, or if any additional landscaping would be required. Photo simulations were provided for the project. So you've got the existing and proposed slides here, and this vantage point is actually looking from State Route 28, looking towards 267 back through the golf course. Don't strain too hard. It's almost impossible to see the facility from this particular slide. Where you will see the facility is at the end of the paved section of Beach Street that I referenced earlier, as someone would be heading towards the maintenance facility. Looking back through the site, and you can see the facility. What you really end up seeing, though, is just the fenced portion down along the bottom. So again, through the design review, should there be any need to address the staining color or additional landscaping requirements, that's where that would take place. It is important to note that the area itself is relatively densely forested, and like I said, the closest residences are approximately 150 feet away from the proposed facility. So in taking a look at the application, staff analyzed a number of different issues, one of which was the zoning consistency. As I indicated, this particular facility requires a conditional use permit and the associated findings, which include such things as neighborhood compatibility, traffic. One of the things we took a look at was that the new Tahoe Basin Area Plan that was established for the recreational zone district caused us to take a look at making sure that the proposed facility won't conflict with the existing recreational amenity or opportunities of the area. Staff did analyze this and concluded that based on the remote location of the proposed facility, that it will not conflict with any of the activities of the golf course. The zoning ordinance itself actually states, and as far as neighborhood compatibility and required setbacks, that the setbacks can be established through the conditional use permit, and there's no specific setbacks for the cellular facility itself. This particular facility is located a minimum of 30 feet from the closest property line, and a recommended condition of approval is included in your staff report that addresses that, as well as the design review requirements. Neighborhood compatibility was, between that and noise were probably our two primary areas that we focused on. In fact, the neighborhood compatibility was really one of the reasons that drove the previous location closer to Brassey Avenue over to the end of Beach Street. It offered a much greater distance away from the adjoining residences, as well as the site visibility. The screening of the proposed facility was much greater at the end of Beach Street than the original location. Tree removal. This particular area of the county is subject to tree removal requirements through the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and this project will be required to be permitted through their agency. And the tree removal, there will be one tree that will be removed, a 36-inch pine, and that removal will have to be approved through TRPA. The last issue that we took a look at was noise, and the noise is really just limited to the generator that's proposed with the facility. And as I indicated, the generator won't be operated continuously. Where it would be operated would be through emergency events where there's power outage, which are exempt from the noise ordinance, or the generator needs to be operated about every 3 weeks for about a 15-minute time period during the day. And staff has taken a look at the manufacturer specification sheet for it's called the Whisper generator. And that specification sheet actually indicates that the decibel levels measured at 23 feet from the generator are 66.6 decibels. And again, the closest property line is over 30 feet away, and the closest residence is over 150 feet away. So with that, one final item. This, being a conditional use permit, was presented before the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council on April 12th. There's discussion about a number of things, including the actual operation of the cellular facility, the technology behind that the applicant can speak to a lot better than I can. But there was also questions about the noise impacts and aesthetics. At the end of that meeting, the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council took action to recommend your Planning Commissioner approve this project. And with that, staff's recommendation is also that you approve this conditional use permit. Specifically, that you make the finding that it's categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Class 3 for new construction or conversion of small structures. And staff's also recommending that you approve the conditional use permit that would allow for this 75-foot tall monopine, the associated antennas, the 30-foot by 30-foot lease area, and fencing, subject to the findings and recommended conditions of approval as they appear in your staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Okay.
Questions, if I could?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Steve, you said the generator, and the report here shows the generator puts out about 66 dBs of noise, thereabouts, a little more.
Correct.
And then I'm looking at condition 17, and it says that the project shall not exceed an hourly noise level of 55. Is that just a difference in terminology, an hourly noise level versus the actual noise level? Or?
There are the two different distinctions between the maximum level as well as the hourly level, but the key issue there has to do with the distance at which it's measured. The 66.6 decibel levels is measured at 23 feet. The noise ordinance would measure it at property line.
And so you're confident that can comply.
Correct.
With that condition?
Yeah.
Okay, next question would be, this condition for noise seems to be considerably more restrictive than the county noise ordinance?
It's actually exactly the county's noise ordinance.
It is the same?
Yes.
Okay, that was good. The other question I would have is, as technology changes, I've seen more and more cell sites that are no longer operational. Do we have a condition or a consideration in here that if this is no longer in use for a period of time, that it needs to be removed?
We don't have that condition, but that's something that we could consider if that was your commission's preference.
My thoughts.
I think that's a valid concern that as you look at these projects, because I have seen some of these towers that are no longer being used too as well. So, so I don't know if we want to add that condition to it. we'll-
Gonna have the applicant first.
Yes, we will. I'll go ahead and ask them, but we'll leave that sort of for the moment.
Pose that thought to the
Yes,
commission.
okay, thank you, Steve.
Steve, whoa, Steve,
Hold
don't,
it. I guess
before
we
you,
got any more questions.
before you.
I almost got away.
No, I just have a quick question. I noticed that the Regional Advisory Committee, the vote was on 4-1 to approve, but was the one based on radiation from a cell tower, noise, or didn't look right, or is there any one specific item that one person decided they couldn't support it?
My speculation, based on their comments previously, was that the concern was really relative to the noticing requirements, and there isn't a noticing requirement for the adjoining property owners to go
I see,
before
okay.
the
It was more of a
regional.
procedural issue that they had with the way it was presented.
Again, I hate to speculate on what
No,
their
no, that's
what their
okay.
reasoning was, but that was what some of the comments were prior to
The vote.
the motion.
Okay.
I have a question as well. And it wasn't addressed in the report, but access to the property, does that already exist? Or, and will that be changed as a result of this structure?
There's no proposal for a change to the access. There is access to the property. This is
Okay.
part of the golf course property, and the pavement ends at close to the property line, and there's an unimproved portion beyond that.
So people going to and from this structure, how will they get there, and how will they, will it be one-way access? Is there two opportunities? How will that work?
I don't think there's a proposal to pave that as part of this, but it will be.
I think I can probably address that. Right now, there's a gravel access road.
Okay.
We're going to require the road to be updated to an all-weather access and to fire department standards. We recommend at least 4 inches of asphalt, but it's really up to the fire department, whatever they feel is appropriate. So it will be improved,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, and then my last question, I think, for you is, with noise, snow perhaps might change that with the cold or the snow, or maybe a tunneling of some parts. Was that taken into consideration?
I don't know. I mean, the manufacturer's specification sheet didn't address snow or non-snow,
Okay.
but the condition imposed for the noise standard would take into account. I mean, whether there's snow there or not, it will still need to meet those decibel levels at the property line.
Okay.
Anything else for Steve? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
If the applicant's here, would they like to add anything to Steve's comments?
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Lisa. I'm with Epic Wireless, representing Verizon Wireless. Thank you, Steve and staff, for the presentation and working with us. We've been working with staff for, it's been going on for probably almost a year now, and I know that Verizon's very excited to improve service for this community. One of the things that staff mentioned in their proposal, or in the presentation, was that the location of this facility was actually located closer to Highway 28 and 267 originally. Visual concerns were brought to our attention, and so we really went back to work to try to find a location that was going to blend better with the existing environment out there. And so what we did is tried to move it further away from the main corridors, tuck it into some of the existing tree lines. We are proposing overall height of 80 feet monopine. It is surrounded by trees ranging in height of over 100 feet, 117 feet in some cases. And so what we find is that the facility, as you could see by some of those photo simulations, really blends in with the existing tree canopy. We're not going to be proposing something that's sticking up outside of the tree canopy, which goes a long way from a visual perspective from the community. Verizon's committed to continually improving cellular service for the entire Tahoe Basin. This particular project is going to be servicing Kings Beach, the highways I mentioned, the residential communities surrounding the facility, as well as some of the commercial corridor that's along Highway 28. The fire station as well on 267 should see some improvement from this. And what we're seeing from a technological standpoint is that the increase in users are really weighing down the existing coverage in the area. Staff mentioned that public safety is becoming an issue as well. A lot of fire departments, police, and sheriff departments are using in-vehicle service systems that rely heavily on wireless service. And so the more robust, reliable, improved service that Verizon can provide goes really a long way for not just sending emails and text messages, but also for general public safety, as well as the commercial business use in the area. With regards to some of the comments on the generator, we can say that it will comply with the county ordinance for the noise. The facility itself is set back 30 feet from the property line. However, we've located the generator furthest away we could from the property line as well to try to further mitigate the noise issues. So the generator itself is approximately 50 feet from the property line, helping to reduce that noise issue as well. With that, any questions commissioners may have, I can certainly answer.
I'd be curious if you have any thoughts on what was brought up by Jeff on cell towers that are no longer in use.
Yeah, of course. That is a condition that we see from time to time from different jurisdictions. It's certainly something that Verizon Wireless doesn't typically run into an issue with. Some of the other providers, though, have merged with other companies and had to decommission their facilities. So if it was the pleasure of the board to apply a condition of approval that requires Verizon Wireless in operating the facility for a set certain amount of time, that we work with the county to decommission the site, I think that's something that we can accept. I think I'd ask that if the commissioners did want to add a condition in there, that it would be loosely worded to allow us to work with maybe the community development director to come up with the specific language that we could comply with.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question on these monopoles, and I don't even know what kind of material other than the pole, probably is steel. The foliage, what's it made out of, and does it fade or does it look kind of cruddy over time, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. You've probably seen these, driving around in different communities. They've been in the works now for probably about a little over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see varying degrees of quality. And what we've been able to do, the industry standard of these has continually been increasing. And so you do have a steel pole is the main support structure. The foliage itself is it's material similar to a faux Christmas tree that you might see, but much more durable. The UV retention levels are much higher they are today than they have been ever before. And so you really combat those fading concerns that we've seen in some of the initial iterations of these trees. And they are designed to meet heavy wind speeds and snow load
branches aren't going to come off like they come off in my trees at my house and I live in an urban setting when the wind blows. But is there any condition that you know of on some of your previous applications that would require you to go back in and refoliage the tree if it starts to look at a certain, because some of these things are visual and comments on what they look like, and is there any conditions in there that would require that they maintain this thing looking somewhat like it was installed?
I can answer, maybe staff can weigh in, but what we find is really common from a lot of jurisdictions is, as you understand, technology is constantly changing, and so oftentimes Verizon will want to upgrade the antenna component of the facility, and that may have to go back before staff and an administrative review, and it gives staff an opportunity to review the facility, ensure that it's compliant with all the conditions, ensure that the condition of it is being kept up to the standards of the county.
Anything you want to add to that, Steve?
Yeah, I would just add that because this is also subject to design review approval, that would typically be where a condition about maintaining a good state of repair and that sort of thing. But the applicant's absolutely right that typically when this would come back in through a building permit to install additional antennas, that would also be where we would look at the previous approvals and evaluate that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question about how often, because I don't know how often this may need to be maintained. What does that look like for a normal working, operating cell phone tower? Is it daily, weekly, monthly? How often are people at this?
Verizon Wireless has a local cellular tech that will visit cell facilities in any given region. And so that particular individual would likely visit the site once a month. just in a standard pickup truck or, a small SUV. And so, no commercial impact to the community, no heavy traffic impacts that you're going to see from this. It's an unmanned facility, and the tech really is going in to make sure the equipment is working properly and that it's in good repair.
Have any other questions, Rich?
Yeah, I guess I'm puzzling a little bit over the all-weather asphalt road. How long of a road are you going to improve here? What's required?
The condition of approval states that we're required to comply with the fire standards for the road. So as far as the length of the road that would be improved, let me see if I can get you a dimension exactly on what that is. It's approximately 75 feet of road.
And this is within the leased area?
The road is outside of the leased area. The existing paved roadway is Beach Street, and off of Beach Street, it transitions to a gravel drive that is currently a existing gravel drive that services the maintenance facility for the golf course. The proposed Verizon facility is off of that gravel drive. However, staff has imposed a condition of approval for us to improve that portion of the gravel drive to meet fire safety standards, which may include a 2-inch asphalt with a 4-inch gravel base.
And that's just to your facility or to the?
That would just be servicing the Verizon facility.
Okay.
Beyond the Verizon facility would transition back to the gravel that's existing to service the maintenance yard.
Okay. And I guess what about your facility would require, if it's like a steel pole, what would require that level of access for a 70,000-pound fire truck?
It would not, in my opinion. The proximity of the facility to Beach Street, which is already paved and accessible by fire, it should not require additional paving directly to the site.
But it was requested by the fire department?
It was requested by staff, as I understand it, and we are to comply with fire standards. So we're more than happy to work with the fire department if they find that condition to be unnecessary or that level of paving to be unnecessary. We're also working with TRPA, and I know a big concern up here in the basin is impervious surface. So, it would be Verizon's preference not to pave. However, we're more than willing to if the fire department deems that necessary for their engines to access, directly to the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We may call you up later. Before I open this to public comment, I would like to remind anybody who would like to comment on this item that you have 3 minutes to make whatever comments you would like. There's a timer on the podium. It will be green until you have 1 minute left. And then when it turns red, you are done. So appreciate your compliance with that. I will now open it up to public comment. Anyone who would like to get up and address this? Okay, seeing none, I close public comment and bring it back to the commission.
That was wasted breath, your last little speech.
Well, hopefully I didn't intimidate anybody from speaking.
Just as a matter of comment, don't know how it should be appropriately worded, but I would support whoever made the motion of adding a condition in there that, and I don't know what's fair and reasonable, but something to the effect of if the pole is dormant, is not in use for a period of 12 months or something, that they need to work out a decommission program with county.
So we've feverishly been working on a draft condition over here. So I could read that condition to see if that's palatable to the commission. And the way it reads, in the event the cellular facility is no longer utilized as determined by county staff, the applicant shall be required to remove the facility and restore the site within 90 days of the use being discontinued.
That's good to me.
Is that
I would suggest you
thoughts?
I was thinking more on the line of, if it's down for maybe, like I say, a 12-month period or something before they would need to, as opposed to 90 days, I guess.
Well,
Or 90
they have
days
to
is what
remove it
they
in
have to
90.
remove it. But where you say if it goes into non-use, add for a period of 12 months or something like that.
So the permit itself would have expiration of 24 months. So, I mean, they could technically get it up operational in 6 months, shut it down, and so you wouldn't want a condition to have it removed before their actual entitlement expires. So 24 months would at least get us to that point.
Well, or their condition there is their use there is conditioned on it remaining in use.
I would be interested in seeing if the applicant has some suggestions to that language.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but I think the intent of the commission is to say, 10 years from now, Verizon is no longer using that facility, maybe technology changes or something happens. They remove their equipment for a set extended period of time. Commissioner Moss had mentioned 12 months of the facility being inoperable. At that point, something that would trigger a Verizon Wireless requirement to work with county to decommission the facility. I think what we want to be careful of is who's determining it being inoperable, I think in the staff suggested condition, it was stating that staff's determining that it's.
The county, correct.
Okay, so Verizon's going to want it a little bit more loosely worded to where we can work with you on determining that. We want to make sure that the correct professionals are determining whether a facility is inoperable or not. So that would be my only concern, and then also providing ample time for Verizon Wireless to actually decommission it. So the 90 days, if we could probably ask for maybe 180 days to have that fully decommissioned. We're talking about a facility that's being proposed for a substantial amount of time, so we'd like to have as much leeway on that as possible.
From my personal 2 cents worth, I don't have a problem with extending the amount of time available for it to be decommissioned. I just am seeing more and more poles standing in the air with no equipment on them as new sites become available and things are recalculated and more uses are over here on this tower than this one, so we get rid of it. But the whole tower never seems to disappear. And it would just, my thoughts would be that, well, it's sitting there and not in use, and therefore the desire to maintain it probably is a little less than if it's an active tower, that at some point it needs to go away. I don't know that it needs to happen in 30, 60, or 90 days, but it just, I think, needs to be provided for.
I see you're writing, EJ. Do you have some other?
So just so I can get a better idea from the commission, so what time frame are you looking at that once it's not operable anymore? This, how much time should go by before we say it needs to be removed?
My thought was if it was inoperable for a period of 12 months, thinking that sometimes you might pull equipment off and you're going to replace it with more modern equipment, but there is a period of time where the site is actually inoperable. So I would want to provide for those kind of conditions to happen, but if it's down and inoperable for a period of 12 months, it's probably not going back up into use at that point and needs to be addressed at coming down.
Okay. Seems reasonable. Any other comments from commissioners on that?
Well, what's the applicant?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Moss's indication of 12 months is a sufficient amount of time. It does allow for, changing of equipment or things that do occur where equipment is pulled off and then replaced. So if a facility is inoperable for 12 months, that's a good indication that it will not become operable again. So I think that's a fair assessment.
Any other thoughts on that from the commission?
Might check the wording again.
Okay, yeah, where are we at on the wording, I guess?
Scrambling with county council.
You want me to take another stab at this?
Okay.
So in the event the cellular facility is not utilized for a period of 12 months, as determined by county staff, the applicant shall be required to remove the facility and restore the site within 90 days of the use being discontinued.
There you go.
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward.
I'll live with that.
Okay. How's the applicant feel about that?
I think we can, I think we can work with
There's
that.
enough flexibility in there
Yeah,
for you?
I think so.
To remove it,
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fine.
especially if it's sat idle and it isn't gonna be reused, if it's been there for 12 months, it's not gonna be repurposed anyway, and we should remove it.
And I guess, obviously, we're going to take action on this, but I personally would suggest that in any future towers that the county has brought forward, that this be a condition that just is put in automatically.
And then just one point of clarification, are we suggesting the 90 days instead of the 180 days, that it must be?
For removal?
Yes.
Now, you said 90?
I said 90, so the question is the commission want us to?
Is that enough time you're asking, or too much time or too little?
I personally wouldn't have a problem if it was 180 days. Like I say, it just at some point needs to come down. It doesn't need to come down overnight.
You know, if it would be okay, since we are setting precedent here, would we be able to, it would be our request as the applicant to have a condition placed that would allow us to work with staff on the fine-tuning of the wording after the hearing.
I don't think we can do that. I mean, that's something we'd have to come up with language now. The other.
Yeah, well, we're not really setting a precedent. We're just talking about this specific project. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Great. And the one other item we need probably take into consideration is the weather up here in Tahoe, where 90 days may not allow that, but 180 days may. So
It should give plenty of
Yeah,
no excuse opportunity to get it done.
180 is probably.
Okay.
Okay, I think we got it.
So you want me to read through it one more time? And I'd also state that this is going to be added to existing condition 19.
Okay.
And so reading the entire condition, the applicant shall have 24 months to exercise this conditional use permit unless exercised, this approval shall expire on April 26, 2020. New language. In the event the cellular facility is not utilized for a period of 12 months, the applicant shall, as determined by county staff, the applicant shall be required to remove the facility and restore the site within 180 days of the use being discontinued.
Okay, does that work?
Well, not to get too technical here, but 180 days of the use being discontinued would be from the date it stops, not from the 12th. You got 12 months of the use being discontinued and then 180 days after notice from the county or something like that.
Well, we'd say, I mean, that's what we're talking about is 180 days from the notice from the county.
Yeah, but from the time it was discontinued would be before the 1 year, or before the 12-month period is up.
What a nitpicker.
I will further massage this
Sorry.
language.
I got to live with these conditions afterwards sometimes. You know, you look at them differently.
We all do. Okay, so this facility and, let's see, restore the site within 180 days of the date of the determination.
Works by me.
Okay.
And
We got it.
I think what I'm hearing in there is that if you have one very exceptional snow year, that county staff has got the flexibility to adjust 180 days.
Well, I guess the way this works, if it's not removed within 100 days, then they're in violation of the condition. It could turn into a.
won't let them have it there anymore.
Right. I mean, there is a process to get it removed.
Where you got it.
So the question is when the county, when that process is initiated and how we go through that process.
It'll take them 2 years to get it removed anyway, if they don't want them to remove it.
Well, okay. If you think it works,
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, my question is, before we get into making motions, is where do we put that in 19? Do we, I mean, in
So
the
the
motion?
second.
In the
with
second one?
Second motion, when you talked about
Okay.
the approved
Add-
conditions with modification
Right.
as noted by
Yeah.
staff.
And do we need to state the language or just reference the change?
Just reference change.
Condition 19 is modified.
You can reference the change to the condition as modified
Okay.
per what was read into the record by staff.
Okay, good.
I-
All right, then I will ask the commission for what their pleasure is.
I have a question. Just for clarification, I don't think it's a difficult one. I am taking a note of the 3 dishes for my TV on my home right now that aren't in use, so I need to be aware of that. But with the utilities, there's a note in here about, is that going to be addressed, just that those utilities will be surveyed? The current utilities?
From the PUD up there, they sent a letter in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be addressed as part of the building permit. I actually did have a conversation with North Tahoe PUD about that, and they seemed satisfied with it. They would be able to catch that at the building permit phase of this.
Okay, any other questions or comments or action? I guess it's up to you, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission finds that the project is categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to the provisions of Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.050 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures. Because the exemption consists of minor construction of a cellular facility which is consistent with the type of small construction contemplated with this exemption.
Supported by the findings contained within the staff report.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right.
I made part of the motion, but I'll second
Moved and seconded. Roll call?
Okay, I think that was, certainly Mr. Moss was the first, and was that Mr. Herzog again with the second? Mr. Rokucci. Okay. So a vote from Mr. Herzog.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Thank you.
For the second motion, when you get to that, I think I do want to read in the condition one more time, just to clarify that latest change.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
As I've
Go
been-
for it, EJ.
So you want to read that in now, or would you like to wait till after we include it into the motion?
Let's include in, council.
I think that we should read it first so that we can make sure that that's the desire of the commission before taking the motion.
I
And
may
so that
want
it's
to take
clear
my
on the
motion
record
back.
what amendment is being included into the record at this time.
So reading condition 19, from the beginning, the applicant shall have 24 months to exercise the conditional use permit. Unless exercised, this approval shall expire on April 26, 2020. And then new language, in the event the cellular facility is not utilized for a period of 12 months as determined by county staff, the applicant shall be required to remove the facility and restore the site within 180 days of the date of the determination. Period.
Is that good?
Works by me.
Okay, go for it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of a cellular facility. The proposed facility will consist of the installation of a 75-foot tall monopine, 80 feet with foliage, with attached antennas and a diesel generator, all contained within a 30-foot by 30-foot lease area surrounded by a 10-foot high fence on a portion of the Brockway Golf Course west of the parking area and maintenance building, supported by the findings and recommended conditions of approval contained within the staff report, with condition 19 as modified and read into the record.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call?
Yeah, that was the first with Mr. Moss, the second with Mr. Rokucci. Mr. Herzog?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, on this one. That concludes our meeting. Oh, appeal, thank you. I can keep forgetting about that. Okay, you have 10 days to appeal this, $581. Okay, now with that, we are done.